I'd like to introduce to you this morning a friend of our congregation. Kathryn Freeman is coming to join me here for a brief conversation. And she is the Director of Public Policy for the Baptist General Convention of Texas Christian Life Commission. And we have a long-standing relationship with Christian Life Commission, and they have done for years important work in Christian advocacy before we called it Christian advocacy like we do today. And one of the areas that Kathryn particularly is working with is helping marshal congregations like ours and other organizations to speak up for the poor and the lowly and the neglected who are the victims of predatory lending, not only in our state but in our nation as well. And so we've got an event happening at noon today that is sponsored by our Christian Advocacy Committee, where we will be premiering a new documentary that we'll talk about more in just a moment. But before we get to that, welcome. So glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And tell us about your work in particular with our Texas Baptist churches that we're participating in, and Cooperative Baptist Fellowship also is part of this. How has this coalition come together, and why have we come together over the issue of predatory lending?
So the reason why predatory lending is a priority for the Baptist General Convention and also CBF is actually because we heard it from our pastors in our churches. The Christian Life Commission, we are sort of responsive. We don't sort of decide on our own the issues that we work on. And we had a bunch of pastors and lay leaders come to us and say, we've been seeing the same group of people come in and out of our benevolence, or we've come in contact with them through our missions programs, and they're all talking about these loans that they've gotten, the payday loans, and the reason why they need help is because they're trying to pay back these loans. And I think Susie Painter, who was the director of the CLC at the time when the work began, as they began doing research, saw the exact predatory nature of these loans. They're not designed for people to be able to pay them off in 2 weeks, and so what we see is people being trapped, the poor and the vulnerable being trapped in a cycle of debt.
Okay, and in today's tapestry, there's an information box that you can see with some facts about predatory lending, and this will illustrate more of what we're saying about this. Now, sometimes I hear people say, well, this whole payday lending thing, this is just a liberal political agenda. But I think you can help us understand that's not just the case in the coalition that's working here.
No, it's not just a liberal issue. I will say nationally there's an organization called Just Lending that includes CBF, it includes the Southern Baptist Convention, I think some Pentecostals, Assemblies of God. So you see sort of a theological diversity among even people that probably don't agree on much else can agree that this is terrible. And if we're to be true to the command to care for the poor and the vulnerable, I think that's where this work has arisen from. And it's not a liberal or a democratic issue. I will say at the state level, two of our biggest champions have been Tom Craddock, who's a Republican from the Midland area, and James White, who's a Republican from East Texas. And I think their concern really is sort of a market concern. Banks and credit unions have to follow regulations and be orderly in how they lend to people, and payday lenders have exploited a loophole, and they are not following the rules.
And just again, why is this a faith issue? Why should people of faith be concerned about predatory lending?
I think, well, there's biblical command, usury in the Bible. I think in the Old Testament, it talks about not taking advantage of the poor. I think that is sort of the basis, and you see that a lot. And I think we should be concerned because these are our neighbors, and if we care in our care for them, it's sort of a larger systemic issue that keeps them from financially flourishing.
Wow. Now, this documentary that some of us are going to be seeing at noon today, tell us about it and how it came to be and what's going to happen with this.
So the CBF and the Texas Catholic Conference worked with a group of faith-based documentarians from Austin to create this documentary called The Ordinance. It actually features your pastor, so you'll get to see him in his, I don't know if this is your documentary debut, but and it just talks about the work that the sort of faith-based community has been doing sort of at the local level, the city level. I think they look at Dallas and they also look at Temple and one of a faith-based nonprofit there has been doing on this issue and trying to galvanize their communities to pass ordinances aimed at regulating payday lenders.
And beyond the premiere that's happening here today, where will this be able to be seen later?
Oh, yes. They have a website. I think it's theordinance.com. And then eventually, I think in September, they're going to put it on YouTube. But the hope is that it will be sort of seen far and wide as this way to galvanize more faith-based people, especially as we are preparing I'll talk about this at the luncheon, but the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau and supporting their efforts.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you for the work that you're doing on behalf of us as Texas Baptists, and it's great to be a partnership with you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right.